right, welcome to the Numberline through 999. We are including this in this unit just as a potential strategy that you could expose students to and they could choose to use to add and subtract up to 999. So we did look at this, the Numberline, the linear model in a prior unit to 99, so we're just going to extend those same concepts with larger numbers. So we mentioned in that video that we don't want to teach students that they only start with the first number. We want them to think about which one would make more sense to start with. It would make more sense to start with 279, but they certainly could start with 227. So I'm going to start with 279. If I've started with this amount, I want to break apart 227 to help me move a little bit easier. So if I start with 279 and I think about, let's just get to the next 10, which would be 8. I'm sorry, just 1 to get me to 280. I could break apart the 7 into 1 and 6. So I know that I've moved the 1. I might not want to do the 6 next, but I certainly could. For my purposes, I'm actually going to just go ahead and jump to the 20 because I know that I need to move 20. That 2 is valued at 20, so I'm going to go ahead and move the 20 to 300. Again, there's no right or wrong order, but that's just the choice that I made. Then I can come back and take care of my 6. I'm going to move 6 to 306, and then I've got the value of this 2, which is 200 that I need to move. So I can choose to make 2 small jumps of 100 to get me from 406 to 506, or eventually we would love students to make that one single jump of 200 to get there a little bit more efficiently. I should be able to calculate these values to add up to be 227, 206 to 20 and 1 to be 227, which is what I decomposed. So that the interpretation of this model would tell me that 506 is my sum. So let's look at subtraction, and this is the same problem that we modeled in an earlier video in this unit. And if you remember, it was pretty tricky because we had to subtract across 2 place values, regroup across 2 place values when we were subtracting. So you'll notice with the linear model, in some ways it's a lot easier because the regrouping kind of goes away as they cross over numbers and values. So we're going to start with 405. I know that I need to go back or take away 128. I'm at 405. I'm going to go ahead and decompose that 8 into a 5 and a 3. So I can just get to an even 100 value at 400. So I've taken care of my 5. I could go ahead and go back my 3, or I can save my 3 for another time. So I'm going to go ahead and start with 100. I'm going to start with a larger place value and go from 400 to 300. Again, there's no right or wrong in the order as long as I'm maintaining the value of 128. I'll go ahead and go back my 20, which gets me to 280. And then I have left to go back the 3 that I had decomposed from the 8. So if I count back 3, this would end me at 277. So this would be my difference because I chose to count back. So let's take the same problem and let's think addition instead. So if I want to relate subtraction to addition, I would actually start with 128, and I'm going to count up to 405. So I'll start from here, and I'm actually going to go by larger values. So I'm going to think about how many hundreds can I go to get close to 405. And I know that I can go 2 hundreds. 3 hundreds would get me over. So that would get me to 328. Or I could have made one single jump of 200 to get me from 128 to 328. Then I'm going to go ahead and get to the next 10, which would get me to 330. I'm still not to 405, so I can't stop yet. But I know that 330 all the way to 400 is 70. Some kids might have to do 20 and 50. Again, that's the flexible part of this strategy. And then I've got to go up 5 more to get to 405. The key here would be interpreting my answer. I can see the parts of my problem right here. The answer to my problem must reside in the distance that I traveled. So we're looking at 275 and 2, which equals 277.